Good morning, friends, and welcome to this glorious Easter Sunday celebration. You can see I'm dressed for the occasion. It's a happy day, and this is my wedding waistcoat. It's the only piece of clothing that I was allowed to choose for our wedding day, and I'm quite chuffed that after 18 years of marriage, I sort of fit in it. It's a bit tight, but we'll be okay. It's a happy day. This is the happiest piece of clothing I own. And it represents a very happy day for me. This is a happy day. Let us celebrate it as such. I know some of you are watching this in pajamas. Maybe you should go and get some happy clothes on. Let's celebrate this day for what it is. Not just in the words we say, not just in what we listen to, but also in the way we dress and the way we behave. Shall we call each other to worship? Join with me in the words that are in yellow. How joyful it is to celebrate the good news of God's love. We are called to be Easter people. Darkness cannot claim us. Fear cannot bind us. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Amen. Would you join with me as we sing a song of worship together now? Of the world, you step down into darkness. Open my eyes, let me see beauty that made this heart adore you. Hope of a life spent with you. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. King of all days, oh so highly exalted, glorious in heaven above. Humbly you came to the earth you created, all for love's sake became poor. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. I'll never know how much it cost to see my sin upon that cross. I'll never know how much it cost to see my sin upon that cross. I'll never know how much it cost to see my sin upon that cross. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. Shall we move now back to our story from Friday and bring it to its conclusion? Saturday was so quiet, you could almost hear the earth breathe. On Sunday, it was just some of the women who had the courage to go to the tomb, just to be close to Jesus. They wanted to remember, even if it was sad. When they got to the tomb, they found that the stone had been rolled away, and that the tomb was empty. Jesus had died on the cross, but somehow he was still with them, as he is with us, especially in the breaking of the bread and the drinking of the cup. When you look at this side, you know that this side is here. When you look at this side, you know that this side is here. And you can't separate them. They're one and the same. This is the great mystery of Easter. And so, the colours change. The Lord is risen. He's risen indeed. Wait a minute. There's something wrong with the story. Here's the beginning and the middle. If you have this side, then you have an end. But you have this side too. The end is a beginning, so you can't just leave the story in a line. I wonder what we can do. I know what we can do. Now the story is in a circle. A circle that can continue on and on, never ending. I wonder which part of this story you love best. I wonder which part speaks to you most. I wonder, do you like this side or this side more? wonder, is there any part of the story that you would take out? I know, in the previous clips I didn't have a waistcoat on, and now I do. You can call it a continuity error. I recorded those other clips when I was preparing for the Good Friday service. But forget about my continuity error for a moment, and come with me. I want to show you something here near the front of the church. Come, this way. This is what I want to show you. The color of Lent is purple. It's that time when we prepare ourselves to come close to the great mystery that is Easter. And on Easter Sunday, the color changes to white as we celebrate the great mystery that is Easter. But there is this in-between time, this nothingness space, this space of limbo. There's no liturgical color for Holy Saturday. It's just blank. Today, I want to be so bold as to give this time a color. It's this time that I want to focus on just for a moment. This nothingness space. This space of fear and grief that I want us to reflect on just for a moment this Easter Sunday. So I've been following the news feeds and following things on social media, Facebook and the rest of it. And what I've realized as I'm following these things is that there are many, many people who are deeply concerned, deeply worried right now. And I guess you'd say, rightly so. It's a deeply distressing time. I look at my own self and I have worries. And as I process my worries, I realize that they go from sort of the ridiculous on the one side through to genuine and real on the other side. But they're all a part of it. They all bear down on me. They all create a weight on my shoulders. Thursday last week wasn't a great day. We had one dog was off at the vet. We also had to put one of Abigail's chickens down, which means we only have one chicken left and we can't get any others before the end of lockdown. In fact, before spring again is when we're waiting, and they're communal birds, so they need company. So, there's this one chicken now. You won't believe it. On Thursday night, middle of the night, I wake up in a cold sweat, worried about this chicken. Worried about a flippin' chicken. And I lost sleep over it. Now, I know that's ridiculous. But it is what it is. I worry about you as a congregation and members of the congregation. I worry about this church and the future of this church post-lockdown. I worry about whether we're able to financially continue, whether I'll get paid at the end of the month. I worry about the economic situation in our whole town. Businesses are closing and won't open again. People have lost jobs. I worry about the children this coming week as they start the new term. My children, how are they going to cope with the online learning? I worry about Joanne and how she's going to teach in this new situation. I worry about some of you and your behavior in this lockdown. Some of you just don't seem to be getting it, that you need to stay at home. Keep your donkey at home. All these worries and concerns. Now, Jesus taught about worry in a block of teaching which became known as the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew. In chapter 6 of Matthew, Jesus talks about worrying, and he says to his followers, don't worry about tomorrow, what you will wear, what you will eat. The whole long teaching there. And the thing about it is, I look at it, I realize that when the disciples first heard that teaching, I reckon it sounded pretty good. Because they were on the up and up. Things were getting better for them. Jesus' popularity was going, ratings were going through the ceiling. Of course, they didn't have to worry about tomorrow. People were offering them hospitality left, right, and center. They were looked after, cared for, no problems, no stress. It's almost a bit ridiculous to talk about worry in that situation. But then I wonder about those words in this space here. Holy Saturday. Jesus is dead and buried. This is another ball game entirely. I wonder how those words would have sounded to Jesus' disciples here. Because here there are real worries. Here there are real concerns. They're worried for their lives, for one. Jesus has already denied Jesus so that he doesn't get lumped in with him. They're worried about their futures. They gave up everything to follow Jesus. 3 years. And we know that from another engagement in John 6. At the end of the chapter, Jesus gives a teaching that is not very popular. And a whole bunch of those who are following him turn away. This is a difficult teaching, they grumble, and off they go. Jesus is quite upset about it, turns to his disciples and says to them, and you lot, you're going to leave me too? Peter, the mouth, says, well, where would we go? They've given up everything, and now he's gone. those words sound like on this day, in this space? Now the thing is, you and I are not called to live in this space here. We're called to be resurrection people. That means living in this space here. You see, the difference between the disciples and you and me is that we look at the story through the lens of the resurrection. We see the end. We know how it ends. Death does not prevail. Hatred does not prevail. Love wins. Life wins. And so the way we deal with our worry must be very, very different to the way the disciples would have dealt with their worry. You and I are called to be resurrection people. I don't think it's realistic to expect us not to have worries. I really don't. I think it's part of being a human being. But it's how we process it, it's what we do with it, and it's what we allow it to do to us that should be different. Let me go back to that silly chicken example. I get woken up in the middle of the night, cold sweat, worried about a chicken. Keeps me awake for 20, 25 minutes at least. This thing going around in my head. Abigail's grief over losing a pet, my own grief over it, the whole thing round and round and round. And eventually, after 25 minutes of doing this, I realized, hold on a second, actually at the end of the day, this chicken is in God's hands, right? I'm in God's hands. My family's in God's hands. The resurrected Lord holds us all. And so it's a bit of an embarrassing prayer, but this is what I prayed. Dear Lord, please don't let that chicken die. But dear Lord, I do know the chicken is yours and I am yours. Won't you just give us your peace? And I went to sleep. And the worry left. In New Zealand, we have at least another 10 days of level 4 lockdown. I suspect it will be a little bit longer. I see it as a wonderful opportunity for you and me to live as resurrection people in our communities. To not allow our worries to burden us, to lay them at Jesus' feet, and to be light and be salt in our neighborhoods. So be good neighbors. Love people. Be generous with yourself, with your family. Find people in your community who you can serve. Rack your brains. Think about the person who nobody else will think about. Find that name and contact them or drop something off at their home. Show them you love them. Let us be trees in this time, offering life and shade and sustenance to all who need it. I want to close with an affirmation from Barbara Glasson. It's beautiful words written for this time. It's an affirmation of who we are. We are not people of fear. We are people of courage. We are not people who protect our own safety. We are people who protect our neighbor's safety. We are not people of greed. We are people of generosity. We are your people, God, giving and loving, wherever we are, whatever it costs, for as long as it takes, wherever you call us. Come, let us live as resurrection people into this new week. Amen. Let us respond in confession. Let us pray. Christ has risen, and we have risen to new life with him. Yet we must confess the ways we have continued to remain in our tombs of sin and fear and death. In silence now, let us call to mind our own need for forgiveness. We pray together. Living Lord, when we stand before the empty tomb, we don't always feel the joy of resurrection. We often feel fear, doubt, and distrust. Sometimes we even feel empty. Forgive the fear that paralyzes us at the brink of new life. Forgive our doubt of your love. Forgive our distrust of your surprising, joyous plan. Fill our emptiness with your glorious light. Raise us to abundant new life for the glory of your name. Wake up, sleeper, wake up. Rise from the dead and Christ will shine on you. Friends, Christ has forgiven us, and Christ calls us to new life. Christ will lead us into all righteousness.
In Christ alone my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought.